So I essentially talked to the murderer, because they say like 80% of the time the murderer will come back to the scene of the crime. I've had relationships in those cities that didn't last because of distance once we moved away. And that's hard because I am 30 and I want the marriage and I want the kids and all that. Yeah. The majority of my stories became tragedy because I was a nightside reporter. And so it just took a toll. So when I saw the anchor position in Memphis and a friend put me up for it, I was like, yeah.
Thank you for joining me on the Life We Choose podcast. I'm Sergio Garcia, and I'm very honored to have ABC24's news anchor, Pepper Baker. Pepper, thank you so much for being here. She'll be talking about her experience in the news industry. So, Pepper, how you doing today?
I am good, Sergio. Thank you for asking me to do this. This is so cool.
Course.
Love your studio.
I knew that once I wanted to do this, I was like, I got to have Pepper on it.
Oh, yeah, you did ask me a while back, and I didn't know how long it would actually take, and you got it all together pretty fast, so this is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I want to talk about your item because obviously we want to get these bookshelves filled up by the guest. So let's talk about your item. What did you bring and what does it mean to you?
Oh, so this stays here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
If that's cool with you.
No, it's fine because this is actually the first time I've looked at it in a while anyway.
Oh, wow.
But I actually have never gotten like any journalism awards, and I've been in the business for like 7 years now. And I've been nominated one time for an Emmy, and it was like a group project or group story. So it's always great when you like, one thing about local news is like the community always really supports you. Mm-hmm. And so in my first market, which was Macon, Georgia, I was an education reporter. Yeah. And the superintendent there ended up being like the 2019 National Superintendent of the Year.
Oh, wow.
And I was there from 2018 to 2021. And so when I left, because I had done so much work with education, he gave me like one of his little like, it's like a coin, but it's like his personal coin that he like token.
Yeah.
So it says like National Superintendent of the Year, 2019, Dr. Curtis Jones. And it has a quote on the back, but it was like, and then he gave me this like pin that had like his special logo for the district. And it was like a moment where he made a little ceremony out of it. Mm-hmm. And I was really honored by that because even now I still have not really been like officially recognized for my work. And so it was awesome to see that this he was not great with, like, he didn't really like being in front of cameras. And I used to like kind of have to like pest him and force him to like interview. And I had worked with him for, I guess, like 2.5 years at that point. So he felt the need to honor me with like this little token. Yeah. And I felt really grateful for it. So yeah.
Wow. That's a good story behind it. Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that in.
For sure. Yeah. It can sit. I don't have a stand to put it on, but
it's all good. I'll make it work somehow. Yeah, I'll make it work somehow. But thank you for bringing that in. Just wanted to give a quick thank you to today's sponsor, the Sharp Society Barbershop, which is located in the Bartlett area. To all my guys who want a good, clean cut, y'all should definitely hit them up. They speak both English and Spanish, so you don't got to worry about that. Thank you to the sponsor. Now let's get back to the episode. So let's talk about that. So you said 7 years in the industry. So tell me about the beginning. What got you interested into journalism? Like, why did you want to go into this industry?
It's kind of weird. I wasn't like a news geek growing up. I actually I played volleyball, and that was like my big thing. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did major in English undergrad. And in that time, I ended up being a sports in-game announcer for our like basketball team. So I would be like the starters, like I would do all of it, the inflections and so for three, like all of that.
Yeah.
And that made me think like, oh, I want to do something where I can like, be myself and be in front of people and like, I don't know, just have a personality. And so I ended up doing an internship at a local news station when I was in school in Boston. And then from there, I needed an actual journalism degree. So anybody looking to get in journalism, I would look at places that have 4-year journalism programs because I ended up getting a master's, which is great, but I didn't necessarily need the master's, and I have a lot of student loans now. But I didn't know what I wanted to do in undergrad. So that's why I went and got an additional degree in broadcast journalism. But it was really that just a performative, like, announcing experience as an in-game basketball team announcer. And I did it for softball and lacrosse too. It wasn't just basketball, but I wanted to kind of be performative, but then the news aspect made me feel like it would be, I can't sing and I can't really act. So I was like, news seems like something that's important and effective, and I can do all those things and write because I love writing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I saw that you got your degree in, was it English?
Yeah. My undergrad was in English at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. And then my master's was at Columbia in New York.
Gotcha. So what was that college experience for you? Like, as a student, what advice did you get other journalism students when, they're going through their degree right now?
Yeah. I mean, English as having my experience as an English major definitely helped my writing, but it isn't the same as writing for TV. Yeah. So again, like, my advice would be, if you know that you want to be in broadcast early, there's a lot of great schools and colleges that have 4-year journalism programs in undergrad, like University of Memphis, or I know UGA, Georgia is a big one. And then Northwestern is a good one. There's a bunch of them. University of Florida, FAMU, like, notable programs. But for me, my experience was like a book club. Like, I read a lot of books and wrote a lot of essays as an English major. Now, my master's program was 1 year accelerated. And that was probably what you're going through. I had 1 year of like print writing class, of a magazine writing class, long form class, but I also had 1 semester of TV news and then a second semester of TV news class. But it was a jam-packed 1 year of like everything that you're probably getting spread out in 4.
Wow.
Which was challenging, especially in New York, because running around trying to get people in Manhattan and Brooklyn to talk to you is not always the easiest. But it was worth it. I mean, that's where I got my first job out of school, was in Macon. But it helped me. It prepared me for sure.
Yeah. So do you think that something that you would take out of that as a student, for all the students that are watching, would be like to put that hard work into it? Because I know you did that all in 1 year. That seemed like, you had time for nothing else except that. So yeah, what was that like?
Yeah. It's funny because in my master's program, it was like some people had already been in local news or in news and came back to get their master's. Whereas like, if I probably was an undergrad, I'd probably be with classmates who were the same level as me. So the level of hard work and like whose level in my experience was different, because there were people who had been print writers and maybe wanted to go into TV news and they decided to get a master's, but they were like 40 years old. I had classmates who were, very new like me. I went from college right into my master's program, but then I had other people, again, who went into the workforce and then came back. But as far as just putting the work in, like with journalism, like, yeah, I mean, doing stuff at school is definitely helpful. I mean, that's where you can really get all the kinks out. So I just don't be afraid to just like go for the stories and do the crazy stand up or whatever, because that's going to help you whenever you have to make a reel and you have to stand out to actual news directors. So it is a lot of hard work though. As you know, like, you got to run around with the camera equipment. You got to get people to, and it's even harder as a student to get people to want to give their time to you. And you have to explain to them that it might not really be published, depending on what your school program is, like getting people's time to do a story for you. And it's like for a school assignment, not necessarily for a newscast, is a little hard to get around. But, again, that just makes you better at your job if you're able to convince people to give you their time.
Yeah.
But yeah, put in the work. You'll stand out. Writing always stands out if you're a good writer, I think. A good shooter, somebody that knows how to have visuals. That was something that really stood out in class, was like people who just had an eye for visuals.
Yeah.
And writing, I would say.
Gotcha.
And camera presence can always come with time. So one of my professors was like, just because you might be shy right now, like that wasn't exactly what he looked for. He looked for good writing, good like foundational journalism skills, accuracy, good shooting. Because if you weren't the best on camera, like that doesn't mean that you won't always be that way. But like getting a good writer and getting like good visual skills are something that kind of stands out as a God-given talent, if you will, from the jump.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know I've experienced my struggles with that, trying to get people to do interviews. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. So you graduated, right? Let's talk about your first station. So tell me about Macon, Georgia. What was that like for you?
Macon, Georgia is slow, but it's charming. And similar to Memphis in a lot of ways, it has a lot of crime, under served areas, a lot of blight. But like, there's also a lot of old money in Macon. So there's that. There's a whole side of it that's super rich and super affluent. But my experience there was good. It's a market 120, so that's, a small market, but it allowed me to really, again, get the kinks out. And it was also it's a 70 plus year old station there that I worked for. And it was the dominant number one. It's still there. It is the dominant number one in Macon. And the one good thing about small markets and small towns are like the people really watch the news. So it was quick to like go to the grocery store just out one night and people would recognize you. So that was always fun and just kind of like, ooh, like people know who I am. But yeah, Macon was a good time. I was there for 3 years because the pandemic hit at the end of my second year and I wanted job stability. So I extended. And being a reporter in the pandemic was a whole monster. So there's that. But I liked Macon. I going from New York to Macon was a huge adjustment because the two are just so different, differently paced. But I wouldn't take that experience away for anything. That station is a really good starter market. It knows how to shape people right out of school and really get them coached up in journalism. I went to St. Louis after that, which is market 23. So that's like 100 market jump. But I also had coworkers who went to Nashville. I had a coworker who went to Atlanta. Like I had coworkers that very much leveled up in big markets, like right from there.
Yeah. So just to expand on what markets are, they're kind of just like, they kind of tell you, what's best, like from market 1 to, like you said, 100 and what is it, 150 are there?
I think it might even touch 200.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't tell you what the smallest market is, but like the biggest market is like New York and LA and Chicago. And so those are like the top 3. You have Miami in there, Dallas is in there, all the top 10s, Atlanta, Boston. And then, it progressively just gets smaller and smaller. So Macon, Georgia, which is an hour south of Atlanta, is market like 118 now. I think it was 120 when I was there. But so and Memphis is 51. So
Yeah. So from my understanding, if you're in a market like that, you might not have a lot of resources like other markets like New York and Memphis and things like that. That are like better in that skill. So did you have to work harder for that? Like, did you have to, I know Danielle Moss that works at ABC24 told me that she had to produce her own newscast. She had to be the anchor and the meteorologist. Was the workload different for you back then?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a time where MSJ, which is multi-skilled journalist, was super heavy. Like, especially in the company I work for, they totally switched to this MSJ thing, no longer doing reporter and cameraman partner kind of work partnerships. It was MSJ is the cameraman, is the editor, is the interviewer, the reporter, and the presenter, all of it. And the, just finding the story yourself, like just going out and getting story ideas too. So that was heavy for me. I used to do my own live shots. Like I used to get the Dejero, which is the software box that you have to carry with you in order to plug into the camera to go live. I used to have to like take one with me along with my camera equipment.
Wow.
And I would set up my own live shot and set up my own camera and then just put myself in front of the camera and obviously be dialed into the station and hear them. But I did all of that. And then, during my probably third year in Macon and right when I was getting into St. Louis, there was a shift that at least the live shots needed to have a camera person with the reporter, because there started to be some really bad safety problems going on. I know a girl went viral for like getting hit by a car because she was doing her own live shot and couldn't see behind her, and she was on like a highway. So that happened. People would go viral for like getting robbed and like by themselves. So there was a shift probably in my third or fourth year in the business where they really pushed having a cameraman at least for your live shots. But you'd have to do everything else by yourself. So to answer your question, yeah, like I used to do it all, as they still do. I do think burnout is big with that. There's a lot of people from my first market who did not continue in news because of that. A lot of talented people, for the simple fact that doing it all and the pay in those starter markets doesn't always amount to the workload, and it's hard. So that's partly why I saw where I fit best was the anchor desk, because I could see myself coming to work every day and giving it my all in the anchor role. But I love reporting. I do fully like advocate for cameraman and reporter partnership work.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard job.
I know. Yeah. It can be very dangerous for sure. So you went from Macon, Georgia to St. Louis. Tell me about St. Louis. What was that like for you?
St. Louis is a lot like Memphis. It's just bigger. It was a lot more higher standards of journalism. It's a competitive market. There's 3 stations there, but they all are like very much like the bar graph on their viewership is all right next to each other. At any given moment, one can be number 1. At any given moment, one could be number 3. So it's not like one is in dead last place ever. It honestly depends on the show. Like I think one station does better in the mornings, another one does better at night. So being in a competitive market like that, it's a lot of pressure. But it made me a better journalist and a better reporter very fast, because I was the youngest reporter at the time, or one of the younger ones when I first started there. So I was like going up against, reporters in their 30s, reporters in their 40s. And you have to bring something to the table. Like at the pitch meetings, they would have like, reporters were expected to have like 3 and 4 story ideas and solid ones that could actually turn that day, not just halfway vetted. So it was daunting at first and hard, and I had a horrible schedule. I mean, I worked like Friday to Tuesday. I think my off days were Wednesday and Thursday. Wow. Yeah, my Monday was Friday, which was terrible.
Gosh, yeah.
But again, like that was where I got my Emmy nomination, and that was where I got to be a part of, like, I got to learn under really credible journalists, really just veteran, seasoned journalists, from the anchors to behind the scenes and all of it, the photogs, the editors. Like, I think I learned a lot in Macon as far as foundational skills, but St. Louis really fine-tuned how I could really effectively set myself apart as a journalist and the hard work. But there was an anchor position open in Memphis, and for a lot of the reasons we already mentioned, I was getting a little burnt out as a nightside reporter in St. Louis, and the constant just high-level expectations every day, and the tragedy I had to cover a lot of the time. The majority of my stories became tragedy because I was a nightside reporter. And so it just took a toll. So when I saw the anchor position in Memphis and a friend put me up for it, I was like, yeah, that's the move.
Yeah, I got you. So I talked to a friend about kind of like what it's like to work in news, and explaining to them that reporters have to turn in stories every day and that they can't expand for like 4 or 5 minutes on a story. They have to do like 1 or 2 minutes. What is that like for you? What do you feel about that? That we can't really, use all that time up. You can only do 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, you always feel like you can't do stories justice if it's only given 90 seconds. There's been a lot of times where I felt like my hands were tied because you got to make that deadline, and you got to do it in this time constraint, and this person has a whole life of story to tell. That is hard. Some stories are very just factual, and so those, like breaking news, in my opinion. Like while you're right there on the scene, it's really easy just to quickly summarize what you know, because there's not a lot that you know. It's a developing story. So those can be really like short and just to the point. But when it's more of the feature-y stories that I felt really hard of like trying to get into those time constraints that, this person was a Army vet who had cancer and like, their kids or they had a bunch of kids or I don't know. It's like all this stuff that they did for the world and they deserve like a 20-minute hour special and you have a 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And sometimes people give you grace on that, but then some. I've had people call me and they're like, you left this out and I said this and that didn't make the story. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So it's hard, but with time and experience, you learn how to be a really good storyteller. And it doesn't take a lot to, just depending on how you use your sound bites and how you write it, it can really make and evoke emotion from the viewer. You just have to be really good at how you can tell a compelling story in 90 seconds. So a lot of people think like they need to put their track or their reporter part, like long VOs, you know what that is, like just long track of the reporter telling most of the story. And I have found that the stories that really I take away a lot from are the ones where they use more of the interview sound bites and they let the person really tell their story instead of like the reporter always. So short reporter tracks to me with longer sound bites are better storytelling in my opinion. But it's all just how you do it. It's all creative. Yeah. But it is hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I want to actually ask you about your most interesting or crazy story that you've ever covered, maybe in St. Louis or Macon, whichever you want from the two, or if you want to do both. But I want to get your perspective on that.
Well, I'll tell you one time where I was really like, wow, that just happened. Well, I was a morning reporter for the last year in Macon, and somebody killed someone in some neighborhood. And I was there at like 4 a.m. And the scene cleared, but our show was at 5 a.m. and I had to go live. And some random guy like came out of like nowhere while I'm setting up in front of the camera by myself. And he's like, hey, what happened here? And I was like, oh, like somebody killed someone. And we don't have a lot of information on the suspect yet, but they're looking for him. And like hours later, when the police finally released like who they were looking for, not the name per se, but like what they were wearing or whatever, it was exactly that guy. And like, so I essentially talked to the murderer, because they say like 80% of the time, the murderer will come back to the scene of the crime. Because they either like, maybe they left something or they are looking to see how much the police know. Like there's a statistic that like the murderer will come back, and this one did. And I just happened to be there getting ready for the live shot. And I just remember being like, that. So, I mean, that's not my favorite story. I mean, that's not the answer, but that was one moment where I was like, what are we doing?
That's a crazy one. Yeah.
What? I just talked to a murderer, and thankfully he did all his business and didn't want to do more because, I was out there by myself. So that was eerie. But as far as one of the stories that I felt was the most impactful was, it was in Macon, and it's going to sound a little boring, but it was the moment where I felt like local journalism matters. And it was essentially, I used to do a series called Driving Me Crazy. And it was like, we would talk to people about road problems that had been driving them crazy. They used to have to like, I'd have to ask them to say like, this pothole is driving me crazy. And they made like a whole commercial out of just, I was in like Dillard's one day, and one lady was like, you're driving me crazy, lady. Anyways, one couple had tried to get their road repaved for like 25 years. They went to the city about it. They like had a petition from the whole neighborhood that the neighborhood road needed repaving, but they couldn't get it done for 25 years. So they called us, and they saw the Driving Me Crazy thing. And I had to do 2 stories on it. One, to initially talk about their problem. The city was aware, but it took like 6 more months. They didn't do anything about it. So then 6 months later, I came back and did another story on them about the fact that the city was still ignoring them. And then finally the city like did end up putting their road on their road projects list, and they got the the road totally repaved. And that couple like still reaches out to me till this day.
Wow.
They were just super grateful for those stories to finally get their road repaved. And that was the moment where like, I was also going through just like, do I want to do this anymore? Like, this is a daily grind every day, trying to pin down people and schedules. But in that moment, it kept me going for, I guess, another 4 years, because I realized how much local journalism mattered. And it's small things, but it lasts forever to some people. Like that story to them is something they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And it's a service that we do. I mean, I feel like journalism is public service. So we put your problem or the issue on blast and we try to get answers to it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, just the consistency and the tenacity of doing that road problem story finally got some results. And I felt like, wow, we can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like as a journalist, it's got to be one of the most satisfying things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about your move to Memphis. I know you said that you wanted to be an anchor. So that's what really attracted you to Memphis. But is there anything else that, made Memphis stand out from the rest?
I had never been to Memphis before I moved here. I didn't know much about it. I knew it was where Dr. Martin Luther King got shot, which is horrible. There's so much more to Memphis now that I know Memphis. But I did not know a ton. I was big on just following opportunity. And I have sacrificed a lot in my personal life to do that. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, and I have not even lived there since I left from high school. So, I mean, college was somewhere different, grad school, and then my jobs have been somewhere different. So I've been away from my family, lost out on relationships. Like I probably could have been married by now, but this job was just such a calling. And honestly, I just also, what else am I going to do to make money? But Memphis was just I did love St. Louis, and they were starting to, I was only there for like a year and some change, and they were starting to really welcome me in the community and doing like hosting gigs and stuff like that. That was definitely there. But yeah, it was the anchor opportunity and the fact that it was within the same company, so it was just going to be like a transfer, was really the big thing for me. And I did know Memphis was a news-making city, so I knew that it was going to be like, yes, it's Market 51, so I would have been going from Market 23 to 51, but the news here is always in national coverage, so I just knew it would be still a good opportunity. And I felt ready for it. A lot of times with stations, you've got to go somewhere where they also see what you see in yourself. And there was a lot of St. Louis where I felt like maybe I was getting a little boxed into just reporting. And I had been filling in, anchoring in Macon often. And so it was hard for me to even get fill-in opportunities at the St. Louis station. So for Memphis to have only seen a reel from filling in and never really seeing a reel of actual like full-time anchoring and still wanting to hire me for an actual anchor position, I just felt like I was finally being seen. And I couldn't miss out on that opportunity. And now I'm sitting here at 30 years old as the main anchor in a Market 51 doing the 5, 6, and 10 p.m. Weeknights, which I don't see many 30-year-olds getting those positions. So in my opinion, for what I want for my personal goals and my personal career, this was 100% the right move.
Yeah. I think seeing you work, you've really improved a lot. And I think that you've made it really far. And I'm very, very glad I got to work with you. So absolutely, I'm glad that you made that move to Memphis.
Thank you, Sergio.
Of course. So I want to talk about maybe like your coworkers at 24. We've got Rudy Williams, Richard Ransom, who've had so many years in the industry. Tell me about your connection with them, maybe what you've learned from them.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that was another reason why I took the job. One, to be an anchor, sure. But once I saw the team I was coming into, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like immediately. I mean, Danielle Moss was a meteorologist at the time, and then Richard Ransom, big name. You cannot mention Memphis news without mentioning Richard Ransom. He's just a legend in that way. And then Rudy as well, just absolutely like a culture king, really knows the pulse of Memphis and music and entertainment, as well as just doing really phenomenal storytelling. Like Rudy's one of the best writers I've ever met. So to come in and be able to co-anchor at the beginning, it was with Rudy right off the bat. It was fam vibes right away. Like he felt like my uncle, or my older brother that I just could just shoot with all the time. So that was great, and learning from them. It was the best scenario. I really feel grateful that I could have gotten my first anchoring full-time role was getting to immerse myself with two very just notable, seasoned, intelligent journalists who just live for the job, and like the old traditional journalism too, like just news hounds and the writing. So I'm still very close with them. They don't work at ABC24 anymore now, but I talked to them. I had lunch with Richard 2 days ago, and Rudy and I are always texting consistently. They're always, they feel like my news family. Like they're never gonna not be a part of my life, and mentorship as well from them has been incredible. I can't really speak any more highly of them. Like I can never not speak highly of them. There's not enough words to say how much they've meant to me and my career. And you met them, so you know them as well. Like they're hardos though. Like they're sticking it to you. They're not afraid to tell you when something wasn't written right, or Rudy even would get down to sometimes the things I would wear in a polite way, never rudely, but just kind of outfit choices, all of it. And
I didn't know that.
No, but it's not, and never in a disrespectful way.
Yeah, I get that.
And if he would also compliment the things that I would wear too. But women have such a hard pressure on air too that he was always looking out. Again, never anything that was inappropriate or anything, but just always made a point. He just was looking out for me at the end of the day. In good ways, and in some ways where maybe I could have made a better style choice. But he was always stylish. So getting a Rudy compliment or just a Rudy little note was, I think that he cares enough to say something to you. So but yeah, I loved working with them. I wish I had 2 years, solid 2 years with them, and I was a sponge, and I needed more, but I think God works in mysterious ways, because the 2 years I had with them really propelled me into being able to do what I'm doing now, which is right now at this moment, I'm solo anchoring 5, 6, and 10 p.m. every night or every weeknight on ABC24. And I could not do that if I had not had those years with Rudy and Richard. I mean, I used to stutter a lot. I still do sometimes, but nervousness, not losing my train of thought, like not being able to handle breaking news and fluid situations, but having the grace of being next to them on the desk now has given me the confidence to do it alone. But if I had not had them, I'm telling you, Sergio, I would not be able to do the role right now.
I know they're very, very good at what they do. Being in the newsroom with them was kind of like wow, like I'm honored to be there with them. So I get what you're saying, of course. So tell me about maybe stories that you've covered here that have impacted you, that have like moved you in a way that
So the big thing that when I started, I think it was like maybe 6 months, not even after I started, Tyree Nichols happened, January of 2023, and I was only at that point I had just they had just promoted me to 5, 6, and 10. When I started, I was only doing the 5 o'clock with Rudy, anchoring. But I probably was like 2 months into actually doing 5, 6, and 10. And that meant 5 o'clock with Rudy Williams and then 6 and 10 with Richard Ransom. And so when that happened, I had not really done breaking news as an anchor on the desk in a situation where we didn't have scripts ready, or we didn't have we were getting information as it was coming in, and we have to figure out how to channel that and communicate it to the viewer. I had not, I've done that many times as a reporter, never as an anchor. And then to be next to Richard Ransom and doing that was daunting, because he's just quick with it. He can talk all day in any situation. And I'm just this very young anchor trying to hold my own on the desk. So that and then that ended up being a story that just kept on giving, given just everything that fell out from Tyree Nichols' death.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment for me here, covering that. It was January 27th, I think, was when the video dropped.
Yeah.
And that was when we were on air for like 4 hours straight, breaking news. And sometimes we had visuals of like the officers involved or the video itself. And sometimes we didn't. Throughout those 4 hours, there were just times where Richard and I were doing very much what you and I are doing right now, where it's just a conversation in front of our audience and the viewers. And that was scary. So yeah, I was nervous, but as the hours went on, I felt myself getting my footing. But there were times where I kind of was just going in circles and couldn't figure out what I was trying to say. That was a moment. And then one of the stories that I wish I would have submitted for an Emmy was there's a woman in Byhalia, and she makes derby hats.
Yes, I remember that one.
Yeah, and she also ended up having like a crazy story. She has a whole like warehouse in her backyard, like a shed that she has transformed into this massive just hat making warehouse. And she has a team of like 4 other women. And she's like made a whole living out of derby, like Kentucky Derby hats, but also there's like numerous horse races and even they're like, they can suffice for church too. Like church women will come and get these just extravagant hats. It's just crazy. So we did a whole feature story on her. She ended up having like health issues as well that she talked about. And she just had an amazing story. And Justin Brown was the photog I was working with, and it was visual and colorful, and it was emotional, and it was such a great day, and it ended up being a really great feature story. And I just wish we would have submitted it, because it would have been a great feature story for an award, I think. But that was probably one of my favorites here.
Yeah.
So a little tragedy with the Tyree Nichols coverage, and then my favorite feel good was definitely that derby hat story.
Gotcha. So I want to talk about the fact that you have been doing ABC24 this week, filling in for Richard Ransom. You were filling in for him, and then you kind of took it over for a while. What was that experience like for you, doing something? It's still newsy, but it's not in the same format. You get to have a little bit more of your own creativity with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard. He used to have me fill in when he would take off. And it wasn't something that he asked me to do. It was more so like, you're doing it, no questions asked.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest like political junkie either, which I'm becoming more of now, because there's obviously just so much importance in holding elected leaders accountable. But I came into journalism initially wanting to do entertainment. I wanted to do like red carpets and stuff. So this is a muscle that I did not know I even had, and it's definitely getting flexed at this point. But ABC24 this week is a flagship show for our station of bringing informed, intelligent community members on a panel discussion. And there's a rule that elected leaders can't be on it, but there might be times where we bring them on just to grill them about particular issues that they've been in the news about. But other than that, it's a panel full of like former city council people, former school board members. Some of them are like Republicans. Some of them are more liberals. And it's different panels every week of really well-informed and, again, just engaged community members. Some of them are pastors. And yeah, Richard did a really good job. He's so connected in the community. He built these panels. Like some of them are reporters from the Daily Memphian, and we have another one from MLK 50. So people who know their stuff. And when I filled in for him, it was scary because I didn't feel confident that I belonged at the table. I didn't think my knowledge of Memphis was rich enough, or I knew enough about Memphis to be there. And he had me once fill in as a panelist and then also fill in as the host. And so giving commentary is a lot different as well. It's a lot different than asking the questions.
Yeah.
So giving commentary is a whole nother animal, but filling in was daunting. But then once he left, and I think I did maybe 4 shows since it's been paused. Again, it wasn't something I asked to take on. It was kind of, but in doing those 4 shows, something clicked, and I was like, I love this. I want to do this. I think it's important. The amount of viewers that write in about it and are really grateful that we bring this kind of candid conversation that goes past the facts and its perspective, and people, the panelists are not afraid to go there and call out our elected leaders.
Yeah.
The XAI project has been a big topic on some of those shows, and people are really calling out Elon Musk and the way that the city has somewhat allowed this giant supercomputer without a lot of regulation. And these panelists have taken it there and really been very blunt about it. And I love that. And I think the viewers love that. And it's an important show. And Richard did it so well. So it's important for me to also know that I am not Richard Ransom. So I come in with more of like, I do the questions. He was able to give a little bit of, of his own perspective in it because he's been in Memphis and very immersed in politics. Whereas I take a more like, I'm gonna let the panelists give their opinions and I'm just gonna facilitate the conversation. But I make sure that I ask the questions that I'm not shying away from the hard questions by any means. So I do make sure that I'm still sticking it to them and wanting to elicit their true opinion on it, even if it's a hard opinion. So I make sure to do that. But it is an important show, and I encourage anybody who we're bringing it back. It's on pause right now, but it's on Sundays. And if you need to know or want to know Memphis in a political sense, and you want, again, just the truth or at least perspective and a little bit more of a fleshed out knowledge of certain issues, it's a show that you should watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you guys can see, that's a lot of valuable experience that Pepper has. So thank you for sharing that, Pepper. I want to get more into your personal life.
Go ahead.
So moving from city to city, I know you said it has affected you, but can you go a little bit deeper into how it has affected you outside of journalism?
Yeah, good and bad. I've taken a lot of time away from my family, a lot. So that has not been easy. I have not lived in the same city as my family since high school. And so that's been hard. The closest I got was in Macon. My sister at the time was living in Atlanta. And we really got close because it's only an hour away. So I used to come up on weekends all the time. Yeah. But now my brother's in Nashville, so that's not super far. But that's been a big sacrifice. I will say on the positive side, it's been awesome to like go to cities that I would never have probably visited. Like St. Louis, Macon, St. Louis, and Memphis are cities that I probably would have never gone to unless there was a convention or some reason or a friend that lived there that I would visit. But I had never visited any of those cities before moving there. Yeah. So that kind of gives a little bit of a fresh take to the city, a fresh view in both my professional life and also just like open to knowing the people there from an unbiased view. So that is cool because you meet a lot of different people. I've made really good friends in all the cities that I've lived in. And I've gotten, Memphis has had a bad rap. So has St. Louis. And living there now and having the experience of working there, I can speak on the good of those cities. So, but it's taken a toll. Yeah. Like my personal life, I've had relationships in those cities that didn't last because of distance once we moved away. And that's hard because I am 30 and I want the marriage and I want the kids and all that. Yeah. And I do think it worked out now because my situation now is I'm so happy that in what I'm in now, my relationship here, and I hope that pans out for the long run. So
yeah, hopefully so.
I do too. But there were some epic breakups of the past, and that sits with you. But you make all these decisions in life. I still am young, I like to think. So it's kind of where I want to set up shop now. Like I won't just take any job. When I was in my 20s, it was like, oh, I'm young and I'm just going to take wherever the opportunity is and really see how far I can get. Yeah. Whereas in my 30s, I have to be a little bit more strategic on the roles I want and the cities that it's no longer just like go anywhere where wherever the opportunity is, it's like, is it the right opportunity? And is it a city that also will put me closer to my family, or a city that's safe enough for a family, or a city that my boyfriend also can work in, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And I know that you've also hosted events kind of like brunchella and things like that, where, people are getting together, having a good time. Do you think that that's something that you want to lean into more?
I do. I used to be people are like, oh, I used to be nervous about public speaking, and they're like, oh, you're an anchor. But there's a reel that's going viral right now that totally explains it. But we speak in front of cameras. And yes, the camera is like thousands of viewers are out there watching you, but it's not there. Thousands of viewers are not in the station. So the hosting events have really helped me be less nervous in front of people. I have a natural shake. So like anytime I'm on a podium, like it doesn't necessarily mean I'm nervous. It's just that like getting in front of people, my body just naturally responds in a kind of like nervous, or I guess just a shaky way. So that's finally kind of worked itself out. I don't shake as much anymore. But brunchella is one of the more fun events, more like loosey-goosey. I can be jokey on the mic and all of that. But there's also been some serious events like Do the Right Thing with the district attorney's office, where middle schoolers are writing essays about the violence in Memphis and how that's affected their lives. And then there's an essay winner and all of that. So that takes a little bit more of a serious tone. And you always just have to prepare with what you're going to say and what fits the tone of the event. But I love it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to get your face out there in person and have people spend an evening in an event with you where they feel like they're getting to know you on a different level than just seeing you on TV. So anytime I can get those hosting opportunities, I love doing them.
Yeah, they sound really fun. Now I want to go and rewind back a little bit, go back in time to when you played volleyball. I think you played at a college, right?
Yes.
Yeah, at the college level. So talk to me about the lessons that you've learned from that sport that have translated to like life skills or life lessons that you've learned.
Yeah, I played D3 at University of Massachusetts in Boston. And it was a really competitive D3 school. We went to the Elite Eight my freshman year, and then we won out of our conference a couple of years after that, my freshman year. But volleyball, in my high school, we won state in my junior year. So volleyball, I was always in programs that were very rigorous. I will say it helped in a lot of ways. Like I had teammates I loved and I had teammates I didn't necessarily love. But at the same time, we still needed to win. And that definitely translated in the workplace. My coworkers, I do love all my coworkers at ABC24. Like that goes without saying. I love everybody. There's not one person in that building that I clash with, but there have been, as anybody's experiences, there's probably coworkers where you're not always going to get along, but you have to find a way to make your professional relationship work because you have to make a product at the end of the day that is successful. So I learned that in sports. Constructive criticism is another thing. I find that people with sports backgrounds tend to take constructive criticism less personally because typically in sports, you're just used to like getting told about your performance and what to do to be better. And it's not always something you want to hear, but it's something you need to hear in order to be better. Yeah. So if I want to get playing time and I'm not passing well, or my form is off, or I'm not doing something right, my coaches have to tell me that, and I have to take it in because at the end of the day, I want play time. But it's not personal. It's not like they don't like me as a person. Yeah. So I think that definitely helps. I have found that people with sports backgrounds just get that notion a little bit better about getting constructive criticism without taking it personal. So I think that's an advantage that has helped me. And yeah, it's just the discipline with sports too, just reporting to practice every day and on time and giving it your all, even on the bad days when you're not feeling so good or something is happening in your personal life, but you decided to show up to practice and your coach needs you to perform and needs you to do your job. that also translates in the workforce as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that too. I played soccer for a long time, and I'm like, I feel like I have this discipline when it comes to like the workplace, to keep going no matter what happens. So I definitely get you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So is there anything else that we could look forward from you? Maybe anything in the future, anything like that that you want to tell the people? Any advice to?
Yeah. I want to continue holding it down on the desk, of course. So there's that. I don't have anything specific at this moment. I do want to continue with hosting events. I've always had this dream like you're doing of like starting a podcast. There's a couple of things that we're working on ABC24 now that I think of it, the Shelby County mayoral's race is coming up. So we talk about politics and stuff. We are really pushing streaming 24 plus. Yeah. So cable's kind of going out the window. A lot of younger people are not really subscribing to cable anymore, or paying for it. So if you have a Roku stick or a Fire Stick or Fire Stick or Apple TV, so many, you can just download the 24 plus app like you would download HBO Max or something. It's just like one of those apps. So that has like more long form content that we're working on at the station. So I've been able to do these like profiles of the mayoral candidates for the Shelby County mayor's race next year. So again, if you're looking to get really immersed in your politics here, I would suggest taking a look at that. We've done 4 out of the 5 candidates, JB Smiley, Mikkel Lowry, JW Gibson, and Harold Collins have all come to the station and done a one-on-one with me. And we're going to do more one-on-ones too. The current mayor, Lee Harris, just did one, and they're really candid. And it's awesome to see that they are willing to come and be pretty straightforward. I didn't feel like I was getting any political, like, poker face answers.
Yeah.
So more streaming is coming. We're really pushing that. So definitely download 24 plus, and then, follow me on Instagram or, all of that, Facebook. And I don't have TikTok, but regardless, I'm going to start kind of doing my own endeavors. You've inspired me with this, because I think it's never a bad idea to just build your own brand. Absolutely. And I want to get better at that. So hosting events, building my own brand outside of ABC24, and also the work with ABC24 is kind of what you can look forward to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Pepper. You have a wealth of knowledge that I'm very glad that we were able to have you here on the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. As you guys know, you can see her on ABC24. I'll have her Instagram in the description. Thank you guys for joining us once again on The Life We Choose. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Stick around. We'll be right back.